If I could go back to my 22-year-old self and tell him, stop making these mistakes, these would be the biggest three that I'd call out. And the first one is I would not just blindly apply to jobs. I used to do this when I wasn't feeling great in my particular work situation. And what happened was I would get rejected or completely ignored because I was just spraying and praying. And instead, the best tactic that I could ever have done for myself is to be clear on what I want and why I want it in my career. So specifically, you can do the following. You write down 5 core things that you want in your next role and 5 reasons why you want each of those things. 1 sentence for each what, 1 sentence for each why. And you'll notice if you do this every 3 or 4 months, some things will be fairly consistent, which means that this is really important to you. Some things, however, might change. For me, for example, what was always consistent is I want to have full autonomy in my work. And I want this because ownership is important to me. I do my best creative work when I feel like I can own the results. But some things change. For example, earlier in my career, I said I really want closer access to data and analytics because at the time I wanted to make more data-driven decisions than just throwing random ideas at a wall. But that's changed. It's evolved into things like I want to be in a role that's very highly strategic because in previous roles, I used to just go after the next great opportunity that I saw, and that ultimately hurt my businesses that I built. You see how as you do this exercise repeatedly, you're going to identify key things that matter to you, and that might change. But what happens is when you're extra clear on what you want and why you want it, then you're going to be much more targeted in your job search. You won't just be spraying and praying. When you go out to network, you're going to tell people, this is what I'm looking for in my next role, and this is why I'm looking for it. And when you are that strategic about your career, people are going to notice. People are going to be like, oh, I know exactly who would be a great fit for you. You should talk to this person. And the more that you do this, especially when you don't need the job, the more you'll have opportunities whenever you want. The second thing that I wish I knew earlier in my career is to not just stay quiet, take notes. Because that's the easiest thing to do, especially when you're junior. I was an associate coordinator, a coordinator, a senior coordinator in the corner of an office, in the corner of a conference room, not participating. Instead, just taking notes, making sure that I could provide the recap for everybody else in the room. But what I was missing out on was an opportunity to be heard, to be contributing actively in conversations, whether it be with executives, clients, even my own manager. Now, why? Because I was so afraid of making a mistake. But if I instead just focused on adding value where I could, without necessarily being a subject matter expert, I would have done so much better. The tactical advice I would have given myself is to start paraphrasing more. Paraphrase more. I call this the global paraphrase. If you're hearing a meeting taking place, and if they're transitioning to a new topic, well then, that's a great opportunity for you to interject and to say, before we go on to that, I want to make sure I'm understanding the key takeaway from what we just talked about. And then you might direct your question where you're like, Barbara or Don, are you thinking that we should be doing blank, blank, blank? And that way, you're engaging the person who is leading that part of the conversation. They'll feel like you've heard them, and you're making sure everyone in the room is aligned to the most important point in case they might have been spacing out. So make sure that you're listening. If you listen and then you actively listen in those particular moments, you don't have to be a subject matter expert. You just have to be curious. If you're curious and you're having these questions, most likely someone else in the room is too. And I wish I internalized that. I wish I had more confidence in myself to speak up more in those situations. And the final thing that I really wish I internalized is that it's not about what you do, it's about how you communicate what you do. I used to think that, oh, well, I was building all these decks. I was coming up with all these ideas. I was bringing different offices for all these different brainstorms. I was doing all these things. But the biggest thing is I wasn't making it known to the people that matter, my manager, my skip, my colleagues, what I was doing, why I was doing, the impact that it had. And I can tell you, as an Asian American, that is a very common stereotype of us, is that we just put our heads down and we do the work. But my mother had always told me, Preston, it's not just about what you do, it's about how you communicate what you do. So what did I do? Whenever I'd be meeting with my manager every month, I would make sure to go back to my key performance indicators to say, I've done this, I haven't quite done this. I was transparent with her or with any of my managers. Right? And that really helped me hold myself accountable and make sure that my performance was top of mind for my manager. Another thing that I would start to do is that when I was presenting, I would make it very clear who I am, what I'm here to talk about, why they should actually care. And when I was very clear with my intent behind what I was saying, people saw me as more strategic versus just saying what I did, which is very different. If you say why you do something, not just what you do, you're going to stand out much more in your career. And if you want more tips on how to be a more commanding speaker in your career, subscribe to Career Comms, my weekly newsletter. The link's in the bio.